The wind howled across the desert plains, brushing the dry grass against the dusty earth like whispers of the forgotten. In a small, forgotten village on the edge of nowhere lived Elena, a woman whose heart carried the weight of a curse she never chose. For years, she had prayed for the blessing every woman around her seemed to hold so easily. The cries of newborns filled every home but hers. She tried everything: herbs, healers, fasting, even midnight prayers whispered into the wind. But nothing. Her husband, Raoul, once a gentle man, began to change. The silence of their empty house ate at him like rot. Each month that passed without news of a child turned him colder. The warmth in his eyes faded into resentment. The villagers whispered. Some pitied her. Others mocked. But the cruelest were her own parents. They saw her as broken, useless, a woman who couldn't continue the family name. Who will take care of us when we're old? Her mother hissed one evening, slamming a bowl onto the table. You can't even give your husband what a dog can give its mate. Elena stood frozen. She had no words. She had been trying to heal, to stay faithful, to hope. But hope doesn't survive long when love turns into disgust. Raoul left a week later. He didn't even say goodbye. When he did not return after 3 months, Elena's father decided it was time to fix what he called her shame. He sold her. Not for love, not even for money, but for debt. A traveling merchant from the north offered to clear the old man's debt in exchange for the quiet woman with green eyes. That woman was Elena. She didn't resist. Maybe she was too tired. Maybe a part of her believed she deserved it. When the merchant took her by the wrist and led her away, her mother didn't even watch. Her father didn't speak. The only sound was the rustle of dry leaves and the fading echo of her footsteps. For days, Elena traveled north with the merchant caravan, cooking, cleaning, and serving as if she were invisible. The men were rough, their words heavy with mockery, but Elena stayed silent. She'd learned that silence was safer than truth, until one night under the endless stars the caravan was ambushed. It happened fast, a rush of shadows, hooves pounding, shouts in the dark. The merchant's men drew weapons, but the attackers moved like ghosts. Arrows flew. Horses screamed. When the dust settled, only a few men remained. And among them stood a tall, broad man with long black hair tied behind him, his eyes dark as obsidian. He was Kohana, a man of Apache blood. His presence was both fierce and sorrowful, like a storm that had forgotten why it began. Elena crouched by the fire, trembling, clutching her torn shawl. Kohana's people gathered the supplies, tending to the wounded. But he noticed her, the pale woman with dirt-streaked cheeks, shaking in silence. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low but not unkind. She looked up slowly. "No one," she whispered. Something in that answer caught him. A woman who called herself no one, as if she'd been erased by life itself. Kohana didn't ask again. Instead, he offered her water. She hesitated, then took it. For the first time in months, someone had looked at her without disgust. When dawn came, the merchant was gone, or dead or fled. Elena had no one, no home, and nowhere to go. Kohana turned to leave with his people, 3 small children clinging to him, 2 boys and a little girl, their faces sun-kissed and eyes wary. Elena watched them, something in her heart aching at the sight. She took a step forward. "Please," she whispered. "Take me with you." The Apache man turned, eyes narrowing slightly. "Why?" Tears blurred her vision. "Because I have nowhere left to go." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. And just like that, her second life began. Kohana's village was small, built at the edge of the canyon where red cliffs met the sky. The people eyed Elena with suspicion when she arrived. A pale outsider among them, the woman who did not speak their tongue. At first, she lived in silence. She gathered wood, fetched water, helped cook. She tried not to be noticed. But the children, they noticed. The youngest, a girl named Ayana, would follow her everywhere. She was 6, with tangled hair and eyes too old for her age. One morning, Ayana tugged on Elena's skirt and asked softly, "Are you going to be my new mama?" Elena froze. Her heart twisted painfully. She smiled weakly, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's face. "No, little one. I'm just someone who helps." But in the weeks that followed, something shifted. The children began to laugh again, Elena told them stories at night, tales her grandmother had whispered long ago. She mended their clothes, braided Ayana's hair, and sang softly as she ground maize in the mornings. The people of the village began to soften toward her. Kohana watched all of this quietly. He had lost his wife 2 winters ago to fever. Since then, he'd carried the burden of both father and mother alone. The children adored him, but even he knew there were gaps only a woman's touch could fill. One evening, as the sun bled red over the cliffs, he approached her. "You do much for my children," he said. Elena smiled faintly. "They remind me what kindness feels like." Kohana looked at her then, really looked. Her eyes were gentle but tired, her hands scarred yet steady. "You carry pain," he said softly. "But you hide it well." She looked away. "Pain doesn't leave when you hide it. It just learns to live quietly." Something in that answer struck deep in him. They were 2 broken souls, each carrying ghosts. Yet somehow, standing side by side, the silence between them felt almost peaceful. Days turned into weeks. The villagers began to trust her. Elena learned their words, how to say water, sun, and family. She learned to smile again, but not everyone accepted her. Some whispered that she was a curse, a woman who could not bear children. One evening, 2 women sneered as she passed. "Why should she stay here? She gives nothing. She cannot even bring new life." Elena stopped walking. For the first time in her life, she turned and faced them. "I may not bring life," she said softly, "but I give love. And sometimes, that's what keeps life alive." The women said nothing. And from that day, no one spoke against her again. Winter came harsh that year. The wind carried frost that bit through skin. Food grew scarce. One night, Ayana fell ill, her tiny body burning with fever. Elena stayed by her side, refusing to sleep. She wiped the sweat from the child's forehead, whispered prayers, and held her through every painful breath. When the fever finally broke at dawn, Kohana found Elena still sitting by the child's side, tears of relief glistening in her eyes. He knelt beside her, his voice rough with emotion. "You saved her." Elena shook her head. "Love saved her. I only gave it a voice." He reached out, gently touching her hand. "You have given more to my home than I ever hoped to find again." Their eyes met. And in that silence, something wordless passed between them. A promise, a warmth that neither had known in years. As spring returned, life in the village bloomed anew. The children laughed louder. The sky seemed bluer. Elena would often sit by the river, humming softly while washing clothes. Kohana would stand nearby, fixing nets, pretending not to watch her, though he always did. One day, he walked up behind her and said quietly, "Elena, the children ask if you will stay." She looked up, surprised. "Do you want me to stay?" He hesitated. Then, "Yes." The word hung between them, trembling with hope. He took a deep breath. "I do not care that you cannot bear children. You have given mine their laughter back. You have given me peace. If you would stay, I would ask you to be their mother and my wife." Elena's heart pounded. For so long she had believed she was worthless, that love was something only others deserved. Tears filled her eyes. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. Kohana stepped closer, cupping her face with rough, gentle hands. "No one earns love. We simply give it. And you have given enough to deserve all of it back." The tears fell freely now, her body trembling with emotion. "Then yes," she said softly. "I will stay." The sun dipped behind them, casting the world in gold. In that moment, 2 souls who had once been lost found home, not in a house, but in each other's hearts. Months passed, and Elena became the heartbeat of Kohana's home. Every morning she would rise before dawn, grinding corn by the fire while the children still slept. She would hum songs from her childhood, soft lullabies carried on the scent of smoke and sage. Kohana would sit quietly nearby, polishing arrows or fixing the roof, pretending not to be moved by her voice. But the truth was he had not heard music in his home for years. Until her. The villagers began to smile when they saw her. She was no longer the outsider. She was their healer, their sister, their mother in spirit. When a child scraped a knee, it was Elena who comforted them. When a mother fell ill, it was Elena who brewed herbs and whispered courage. She could not give birth, but she gave life in every other way. At night, when the children were asleep, Kohana would tell her stories of his people, of the spirits in the wind, of ancestors who walked beside the living. She would listen with her head on his shoulder, the firelight dancing across their faces. "This peace," she whispered one night. "It feels like a dream." Kohana looked at her, his expression solemn. "Then we will dream together and protect it. But peace rarely lasts forever." The stranger, it was late summer when a band of traders arrived from the south. Among them was a man Elena never thought she'd see again. Raoul. He looked older, his face hard, his clothes fine but eyes hollow. When he saw Elena among the villagers, laughter echoing from Kohana's children, something flickered in his gaze, shock, then bitterness. "Elena?" he said, stepping closer. "Is it really you?" She froze. The name fell from his lips like a stone dropping into still water. The villagers turned, sensing tension. Kohana moved protectively beside her, his posture firm. Raoul's eyes darted to Kohana, then back to her. "So this is where you ran off to?" "Living with savages." The word hit like venom. The crowd murmured. Kohana's eyes darkened, but he stayed silent. Elena's hands trembled. "I didn't run away, Raoul," she said softly. "You left me, and when you did, my parents sold me." Raoul sneered. "Sold you?" "You always did have a way of blaming others for your own failings." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You think this," he gestured toward Kohana's home, "makes you more of a woman now? You're still barren, Elena. You'll never be more than a mistake." Kohana's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, his voice quiet but fierce. "You will not speak to her that way." Raoul smirked. "And who are you to stop me?" "Her new master?" Kohana's hand twitched toward the knife at his belt, but Elena caught his arm. "No," she whispered. "He's not worth it." She turned to Raoul, her voice trembling, not with fear but with strength. "You lost the right to speak of me when you stopped seeing me as human. Leave." Raoul's face darkened. He spat on the ground and walked away. But that night, while the village slept, Raoul's bitterness turned to vengeance. He had seen the peace in her eyes and something he could never give her, and that envy burned hotter than hatred. The fire, it began with smoke. Elena woke to the smell of it, thick and choking. She sat up, heart pounding, and saw the orange glow outside. Flames licked at the edges of the storage huts. People were shouting, running for water. Kohana grabbed his bow. "Stay with the children," he yelled, racing into the chaos. Elena ran to gather Ayana and the boys, wrapping them in blankets, trying to calm their sobs. But then she saw him, Raoul, slipping between shadows, holding a torch, his eyes wild. "Raoul." "Stop," she screamed. He turned, startled. "You should have stayed broken, Elena," he shouted, throwing the torch toward her hut. Elena ran, but not away. She threw herself toward the fire, grabbing the torch before it could catch. Flames seared her hands, the smell of burning skin filling the air. She dropped it, gasping, tears mixing with smoke. Kohana saw her, saw the man fleeing, and loosed an arrow. It missed Raoul's heart by inches, grazing his arm. Raoul stumbled and vanished into the desert. The fire was contained before sunrise, but the damage was done. Several homes were lost. Elena's hands were badly burned. Kohana knelt beside her as the healers wrapped her wounds. "Why did you do that?" he whispered, voice shaking. She smiled weakly. "Because those children, our home, were worth more than my pain." He pressed his forehead against hers, tears falling freely. "You are braver than any warrior I've ever known." Healing in shadows for days, she couldn't use her hands. Kohana fed her, bathed her burns, and cared for her like a sacred thing. But she hated feeling helpless. One evening, she wept quietly. "You shouldn't have to do all this," she whispered. Kohana took her hands gently, unwrapping the bandages. The skin beneath was raw, scarred, but healing. "These hands saved lives," he said softly. "They will heal, because love heals what fire cannot." In the following weeks, her strength returned. She learned again to cook, to braid, to hold. The scars never fully faded, but she wore them like medals, proof that she had fought for something worth keeping. Raoul never returned. Some said the desert swallowed him. Others said he wandered mad with guilt. Elena never asked. She had already forgiven him, not for him, but for her own peace. A child of her heart, one morning, Ayana came running, holding a small bird in her hands and its wing broken. "Can you help it, Mama Elena?" she asked. Elena smiled. "We can try." Together they made a small splint, wrapped it gently, and cared for it each day. Slowly the bird healed. When it could fly again, Ayana cried, "I don't want it to leave." Elena kissed her hair. Love doesn't mean keeping. It means letting fly when they're ready. Kohana, watching from afar, realized something profound. This woman who could never bear children had become the truest mother he'd ever known. That evening, under a sky painted in fire and gold, he told her so. "You have given them wings," he said quietly. "And me, you have given me a soul again." Elena's eyes glistened. "And you, Kohana, have given me something I thought I'd lost forever. A reason to live." They embraced as the children danced around them, laughter echoing through the canyon. The storm, but the final test came 1 year later. A fever swept through the valley, a sickness that spared no one. Children fell first, then the elders. The healers worked day and night, but the herbs grew scarce. Elena worked beside them, refusing to rest. When Ayana fell ill, her heart shattered. Kohana pleaded with her to sleep, but she would not. "I will not lose another child," she whispered. Determination burning in her eyes for days, she stayed by Ayana's side, cooling her fever with wet cloths, singing the same lullaby that once soothed her own lonely nights. And when the fever finally broke, Ayana opened her eyes and whispered, "Mama." Elena's strength gave out then. She collapsed beside the bed. Her body, weakened from exhaustion and burns and sleepless nights, could not take more. The villagers carried her to the healer's hut. Kohana held her hand, tears streaming. "You cannot leave me now," he begged. "We still have dreams to see." She smiled faintly, her voice barely a whisper. "Dreams never die, Kohana. They just move to the hearts we've healed." But fate, merciful for once, listened. She did not die that night. Slowly, her breathing steadied, her eyes fluttered open. Kohana wept openly as he held her close. "I thought the spirits were taking you," he whispered. She smiled weakly. "Not yet. The children still need their mother." A new spring. When spring came again, the valley bloomed brighter than ever. The people celebrated not just the survival of the village, but the bond that had held them together. Kohana built a new hut on the hill, not just for shelter but as a symbol. On its doorway he carved words from his ancestors' tongue. When Elena asked what they meant, he smiled and said, "Home of the heart that healed mine." Every evening, as the sun set behind the cliffs, she would stand outside, watching the sky turn crimson. Sometimes she thought of her past, the parents who sold her, the man who hurt her. But she no longer felt bitterness, only gratitude, because those wounds had led her here. To love, to peace, to purpose. The legacy years later, when Kohana's hair turned silver and the children had grown, they would still gather by the fire to hear her stories. "Tell us again, Mama," Ayana would say, "how you found us." And Elena would smile, looking at Kohana with the same soft eyes that first asked him to take her in. "I didn't find you," she'd say. "We found each other, in the middle of our brokenness." And every time she said it, Kohana's hand would find hers, their fingers fitting perfectly even through the scars. Epilogue. When Elena's time finally came, she left quietly, in her sleep with the dawn touching her face. The villagers mourned her for 7 days. They said she came to them as a stranger and left as the mother of their people. Kohana buried her on the hill overlooking the canyon. He planted a tree beside her grave, one that still stands, its roots deep, its branches reaching for the endless sky. And when the wind blows through its leaves, it sounds like a woman humming softly, the song of love that healed an entire world. Soft piano music swells. Narrator's voice returns, calm, warm, hopeful. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to the Kind Heart Stories. Every click helps us share more stories of compassion, courage, and the power of love to heal even the deepest scars. Because sometimes, the kindest hearts are the ones that were once broken.